Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Today I'm going to be getting into my May wrap up where I tell you all about all of the books that I read in May. We had some good, we had some bad, we had some ugly, and we also had a couple favorites. So it's all across the board this month. I cannot wait to tell you about every single book review I have. But before we get into the books, I do want to let you know about today's sponsor, which is Dossier. And y'all know I love Dossier so much. If you've never heard of Dossier, they make the most adorable and amazing scented perfumes. Right here, I have powdery coconut from them. And as you can see, their whole shtick is they are iconic scents with designer quality, but no markups. That is right. So if you like Tom Ford Soleil Blanc, powdery coconut smells exactly like that. Let's just give it a taste. A smell. That smells so good. And it does smell exactly like the Tom Ford. I'm obsessed. And then I also have aquatic coconut. As you can see, I'm really getting into the beachy scents for summer. And aquatic coconut smells exactly like Replica Beach Walk. Oh my God, this is my summer fragrance for sure. But the thing about Dossier is you can get a luxury fragrance for a fraction of the price. Scents like these in Sephora can go between like $150 to $250, sometimes $300, which is literally crazy to me. And Dossier's perfumes run between $29 and $49, literally a fraction of the price for the same quality and the same scent. I love working with Dossier because I genuinely love their products. I always get so many compliments when I wear it out. It lasts so long on my skin. The packaging is adorable. It's just overall the best perfume option in my opinion. They're also now available in Walmart and they have a ton of cool, interesting products like candles and room diffusers. So go check them out. I will link them down below and you can use my code Haley5 for 5% off your purchase. Thank you so much to Dossier for sponsoring this video. And now let's get into the May wrap up. So to start off the wrap up, y'all know I always begin with stats. In the month of May, I read a total of 16 books. That is 4,714 pages in all. And here is my mood breakdown. As always, I have a ton of dark, tense, and mysterious reads, a couple reflective, emotional, and one challenging. I wonder what that one was. My pacing was all over the board. Usually I have pretty fast-paced reads generally, but I actually read majority medium-paced books in May, 1 slow-paced book, and 5 fast-paced. As for page number, I finally read a book this year that was over 500 pages, and I also read 5 that were under 300 pages, and the rest of the books were all in that like perfect 300 to 500 page range. I did read all fiction this month, but one month I'm gonna get you. One month there's gonna be a nonfiction in there. Here is my genre breakdown. Mostly read thrillers and mysteries and horror this past month, as I usually do. Here are the ways that I shelved my books in May. So again, mostly thrillers and horror, quite a few 5 stars, a couple YA, 1 romance, and also a book that I want to recommend for Halloween. I started making some bookshelves that correspond to certain recommendation types that I like to give. So obviously in the next few months, I'm going to be compiling some Halloween book recommendations. I already have a summer bookshelf, so I can give you some summer recommendations. If you are on Storygraph and you want to look at just all of my general recommendations for Christmas, Halloween, summer, different things like that, those shelves are available. And then getting into the 16 reviews that I posted of these books over the past month, we had an average of 3.66 stars, which is really not great. I like to get it closer to 4 stars. And this is much closer to 3.5, which to me is like just like a slightly better than average book. I did have 2 1-star ratings this month, a 2.5, a 3, 3.5s, 3, 4, 3 4.5s, and 3 5 stars. So pretty evenly distributed reviews, but quite quite a few negative reviews as well. And this is the breakdown of how I read these pages throughout the month. As you can see exactly when the weekends are because wow, like those 2 first weekends of May, I read a ton, and the whole first week of May, I read literally nothing because I was so swamped with work. It was insane. But those are all my stats, and now let's go ahead and get into the actual reviews. As always, I'm going to start out with my lowest rated, least favorite book, and we're going to work our way up to my highest rated favorite book of the month. So we're going to start out with a little bit of a rant here because I had really high hopes for this book, and it really disappointed me. The first 1-star book that I want to talk about is They All Died Screaming by Christopher Triana. I really have loved Christopher Triana in the past. Gone to See the Riverman was one of my favorite books of last year, and Full Brutal is one of my favorite books of this year. The other book that I read from him besides They All Died Screaming, I did give 1 star, and now I've given They All Died Screaming 1 star. So I really just don't know what to make of my relationship with Christopher Triana. Like, I've given half of the books that I've read 5 stars and they're favorites of all time, and the other half 1 star, and I literally hate them. I want to burn them like Fahrenheit 451 style. So I don't really know. It seems like I either really love it or really hate it when it comes to Christopher Triana's work. And unfortunately, this one is a hate it. So in They All Died Screaming, the premise is that we're following kind of the end of the world in a way. We're following this like breakdown of society that happens when a pandemic starts. And this pandemic is with a disease where people just scream and they can't stop screaming. And they either like go so ragged and are in so much pain from just constantly screaming that they end up unaliving themselves, or something happens where they like are buried, like their face is buried because they like trip and fall in like a pillow or something, and they are screaming and they can't take a breath. Like, there are just a multitude of ways that people die from this disease that causes you to not be able to stop screaming. And I thought that was a really unique concept. And it also sounded similar to The Violence by Delilah S. Dawson, which I really enjoyed, but it wasn't a 5-star for me. I actually gave that one 4 stars because I wanted it to go just that one step further with the gore and the violence. And obviously Christopher Triana writes extreme horror, so I knew he would do that. And The Violence was also a little long for me, and this book was less than 300 pages. So I was thinking all the issues that I had with The Violence were going to be resolved, and I was really going to like this one. But when I started, there were these 2 very conflicting perspectives, and they just didn't really connect. And sometimes that's part of the mystery and part of the fun of reading horror, is like seeing when these 2 perspectives are going to converge and connect and how it's all connected. Like, I love that. But these 2, the connection just like didn't work for me. They felt like 2 completely different stories. And honestly, I didn't really love either of them. I definitely preferred the story that was really not the storyline following the pandemic. It was this other storyline where we're following this little boy who's being kidnapped and raised as a serial killer, like with this other serial killer. So it's kind of giving Brother. And if those chapters were just a book on their own, I think I would have probably enjoyed it a lot more. But the pandemic side of the story just like didn't work. It felt just like meaningless, plotless, gore and gross, offensive shit. And like, for me, I read extreme horror for the plot. Like, I know not all people do that. Some people, which I'm going to reserve naming my judgments and personal opinions on this, but some people do just like read plotless extreme horror because they like to just get off on the gross depravity of it. For me, that is not why I read it. I like to read extreme stories of resilience, and this was definitely not that. And again, that's just my taste, so take it with a grain of salt. But there was just no redeemable plot in here for me. And the thing is that Christopher Triana tried to make it redeemable at the end. He tried to like create this feminist commentary narrative that was like very half-baked and just like tacked on at the end to try to bring some meaning to the end of this plotless, gross book. And it just like really didn't work for me, and it was almost more offensive that this like forced commentary was put in there. Yeah, I really do not like this book at all, and I don't understand how someone can write such an intelligent, well thought out, and just beautifully crafted feminine perspective horror novel, like full brutal, that shows me that Christopher Triana has like a lot of empathy for women and seems to understand like the female gaze and the female lens and feminism in general, and then write something like this. Like, it just doesn't really connect for me. So all that to say, 1 star. I don't recommend it. And the other 1-star book that I read in May was You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. I read this in my new release thriller vlog, which I will link up above and down below if you want my full thoughts. But because I already talked about this one in a vlog, I won't give too much ranting about it. It's just boring, okay? We're following this girl who shows up at this Airbnb, and the whole time there's this tension of, is she gonna kill the man who's hosting the Airbnb, or is the Airbnb host just luring her in because he's gonna kill her? Like, it's like a will they, won't they romance murder kind of thing. And it's just boring. Nothing happens the entire book. The twist at the end was super predictable. It was just like a nothing waste of time book, which was, again, really disappointing because I've given 2 of Geneva Rose's books more than 4.5 out of 5 stars. So 2 of my faves that I thought I could count on really disappointed me this month. But it's fine because we're moving on to bigger and better things, but not quite yet, because I have a 2.5 out of 5 star book to share with you, and that is What Have We Done by Alex Finlay. This was such a forgettable thriller after all the waves that Alex Finlay made with Every Last Secret. I believe that was Alex Finlay's first book. Night Shift was just okay for me, and then this one was just so average. Like, again, it's one of those thrillers where it's all these people who had a past together and they're all these secrets, and now they're being threatened in present day, so we have to unravel the things that they did when they were younger and all these secrets that they don't want to come out to try to prevent something bad happening to them in present day. And the characters just didn't feel fleshed out. They didn't feel real. I didn't care about them. The plot was just kind of like meh. Nothing crazy, original, and fun happened. It was just so average. If you're thinking about picking up this new release thriller, you don't need it. Don't waste your money, don't waste your time. This was just so average, and I am sick of being in a rut of all of these average, doing nothing, giving me nothing thrillers. I want some unique shit. I need some Jennifer Hillier in my life. I need some like intense Karen Slaughter in my life. Like, that is the feeling that I'm looking for, but I've read most of Karen's backlist and all of Jennifer Hillier's backlist, so I've run out of good thriller material. Like, I'm looking for my next thriller person that I'm gonna really enjoy reading from, because now I finished all of S.A. Cosby's backlist too, so it's like, what do I do now? Am I stuck with this average 2.5 bullshit? Kill me. Next, let's get into the 1 3-star book that I have this month. So these are things now we're getting out of the like back half of my reviews and into the stuff that I would actively recommend. 3 stars for me are just like slightly better than average, and this 3-star that I read this month was The Only Survivors by Megan Miranda, another one that I featured in my new release thriller vlog. And this one was just fine. It was fine. It wasn't anything special. I probably would have given it a 3.5 if I didn't predict 2 of the twists in like the first 10 chapters. So that was a little disappointing, but other than that, this is a standard group of people. Something happened to them while they were younger. They got in this horrible accident and they were the few that survived. There's all this secrecy around it. There are all of these unsolved mystery pieces about it. And now someone in their group of survivors has died and they're trying to figure out why he died, who's possibly coming to pick him off, and reveal all the secrets that happened around the event. It's basically like a copy and paste of What Have We Done? And it's very similar to a couple other thrillers I'm going to talk about later in this video that did this kind of a plot a lot better. So I think this one is pretty forgettable and predictable, but if you're looking for something that just has like Outer Banks beachy vibes, because that is definitely in here, and has like some convoluted drama, just like an average thriller to pick up on a beach day or something, I think this would be a good option, but definitely not the best one. Next up, we're going to get into my 3.5 star rated books. So if I rate something 4 stars and above, that's like solid. I'm going to consistently recommend it. The 3.5s are like, it was better than average, but I wouldn't necessarily widely recommend it. So keep that in mind when I talk about these, especially this first one, because it's kind of hilarious. So there's a little bit of backstory with this one. I read The Big Score by L. Jordan, and this is a hockey romance novella by a Black author featuring a Black main character. And I picked this one up from KU because on Sprints, we were talking about sports romance, and I had Deja on with me, and Deja was like, I wonder if there is any Black hockey romance. Like, is that even a thing? So we started looking for it, and we came across The Big Score. And I was like, you know what? Should we just all read it right now on Sprints? So if you're looking for chaos on Sprints and that sounds fun to you, come join my Sprints over on Patreon. We have such a fun time over there. It is just like kikiing with the girls time. And we read The Big Score. Deja and Aspen, they gave it 2 stars, I believe. Or maybe Aspen gave it 1 star. I don't know. Aspen's kind of a hater, which I am very much here for. But I was also kind of here for The Big Score. I give it a 3.5 out of 5 star. Okay. Listen. Is this a literary masterpiece? No. Is the writing cringe? Yeah. Does it kind of give Wattpad? Yeah. But was I emotionally invested? Yeah. Did I like the characters? Yeah. Do I remember the plot and the characters a lot more vividly than The Only Survivors and What Have We Done? Yeah. I have a clear picture of who this main character was, and I absolutely loved her, okay? She was this nerdy girl in college, and she's like, y'all, I'm a nerd, I'm a certified nerd, and I'm looking for my nerd boyfriend, and I'm trying to find him, but everyone around here is a fake nerd. Name 3 Star Wars characters or I will actually end your life. Like, it was crazy the way that she was the nerd police. It was so funny to me. And then this, like, suave, jock, like, cool boy hockey player starts paying attention to her, and she, the way that she reacts to him is so funny. Because she's like, why is a jock talking to me? I don't get it. And you can tell that she like is kind of nervous around him. Like she kind of low-key wants something to happen between them. But then he'll be like, hey, we should hang out. And she's like, shut up and go away. And I'm like, that is kind of me. Like that is kind of everything. I just loved her character, whether it was intentional or not, like whether that was the author's vision or not, I was living for it. Absolutely living for it. It was so funny. It was so fun. Again, the writing, not really giving. The cover, not really giving. But I had so much fun with it, and it wasn't a basic, average, copy-paste thriller. So I feel good about giving this one a 3.5. Also in the 3.5 star category, I have 13 Stories by Jonathan Sims. And this one was a little bit difficult to get into. I tried to start reading it the first week of May, and granted it was a really busy week, but usually I can like get sucked into a book even when I'm super busy and make time for it. This one I just found really hard to prioritize because it doesn't have great fluency throughout the book. So we're really following 13 different separate perspectives, and there are 13 chapters in this book. It's basically just 13 short stories of like what is happening to these people who all live in the same building. And this building has 13 stories. There are 13 stories. Haha, very clever, very cute. And they each are just this little horrifying account of what happened to these people before they were invited to this dinner party at the penthouse of their building where the like billionaire owner of the real estate lives. And at this dinner party, the billionaire died, like he was murdered. So we're trying to put the pieces together by reading all of their stories and figure out who possibly killed him, what happened to him, yada, yada, yada. So there were, I would say, 7 or 8 stories in here that I just like passively enjoyed. It was good. It was effective horror. There were 3 in here that I really, 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 really loved. And then there were 2 or 3 that I just did not like. They were really boring and difficult to get through. So it was kind of all over the board. But the last chapter I loved. It had this dark twist and this great commentary. But it's hard to rate this as one singular story. And Buddy read this with Aspen and she kind of talked about the same thing, that like it's hard to see this as one cohesive unit because all the stories feel so separate until the end. And if you read it as just 13 separate stories, you're not going to see the like interwoven connections. So it's just kind of a weird book to conceptualize, but overall I did enjoy it. I'm just not sure about the execution. And the last 3.5 star book that I have to talk about is Virgin Night by Christopher Robertson. And this is one of the books that I read for my Patreon exclusive vlog. My top tier patrons, I would say like on a quarterly basis, vote for a few books that they want me to read in a Patreon only vlog that will never see the light of day on YouTube. And this is one that they picked for me over there. If you remember, one of my favorite books of last year was The Cotton Candy Massacre by Christopher Robertson. So I was very excited to try out another from him. Unfortunately, this one was not a favorite like that one was, but I still had a really fun time with it. This is basically a 90s slasher book that has a lot of great LGBTQIA representation and a lot of commentary on religious trauma in the context of a classic 90s slasher horror movie with some kind of supernatural, interesting Stranger Things vibes. I would say if you're gay and you like Stranger Things, you will probably have a lot of fun reading this book as I did. I absolutely fell in love with the characters, but the plot wasn't as tight as I wanted it to be. There wasn't a ton of gore, and even though it's branded as a slasher, the slashing didn't come in until quite a significant portion into the book. So while it was really, really fun, it did feel a little disorganized and I wasn't totally sure about the lore. Like a lot of the lore in this book was extremely confusing and I felt like I was just like, okay, I'll go along with it without having a deep understanding of how things were working, what exactly was like sci-fi supernatural versus what was real. I don't know if this book was even meant to be viewed in like reality, but yeah, I'm just overall very confused with it, but it was very funny and very enjoyable. I had a good time reading it. It was just a weird time, if that makes sense. And for full thoughts, watch the Patreon vlog. All right, this lighting is literally getting crazy. The way that the clouds are moving, it's like up and down every 2 seconds. And Cameron just walked in the door with my lunch. So I'm gonna take a pause and I'll be back to tell you about my favorite books that I read in May. It's gonna be in like 0.2 milliseconds for you, but it's probably gonna be in a significant amount of time for me. So I will see you in a second. Well, it turns out maybe taking a lunch break was a bad idea because it's actually gotten progressively more rainy and darker. So now we have completely different lighting, but at least hopefully this one is consistent. So let's jump back into the wrap up with my 4-star books. The first one I want to tell you about is Slice of Cherry by Dia Reeves. And this is a YA fantastical horror, big, thick book about 2 sisters whose father was an infamous serial killer, but now he is caught and behind bars. And these girls are not going to be caught in their murders like their father was. They actually have developed a certain kind of magic power that helps them get away with murder, literally. I thought this was really fun, really interesting, and unlike really any other book I've ever read, I really liked the commentary and the character development of the two sisters that like propelled the plot forward. But there was a lot extra in here that I didn't love, and it was really difficult for me to get a grasp on the magic system. I wasn't totally sold on how everything worked, and it seemed like things were pretty fluid and like could go either way at any given moment. So it was a little bit confusing, but overall I really, really enjoyed it, especially the character development pieces. Y'all know I'm a character-driven girly, and this one just did it for me. It was gory, it was funny, it was emotional, it was heartwarming, it was weird. It had so many different nuanced layers to it, and for full thoughts, go watch my vlog. I did an entire vlog reading horror and thriller books by Black authors, so if you want to check that out, I will link it above and below. Also in that vlog, I read My Darkest Prayer by S.A. Cosby, and this was actually S.A. Cosby's first novel. I didn't know that. I thought this was a newer release, but it was just re-released under a new publisher, and I definitely understand why I didn't like this one as much as the other two that I've read by him, because you can really see the development of his writing from this book to his more recent releases. This one, I really like the story. It's the same kind of setup where it's like an action plot of someone who is trying to get on the straight and narrow path, gets pulled back into this dark underbelly world of crime, and they have to figure out a way to get out of it. So in this instance, we are following a guy who works at a funeral home, and the priest dies, and when he comes into the funeral home, he's like, something suspicious is going on here. So he starts to look into the suspicious death of this priest, and along the way uncovers a lot of secrets about the church, different corruption and things like that. I love the plot. I love the action. I just didn't feel quite as attached to these characters as I did in something like Razorblade Tears, which is one of my favorites of last year, and Blacktop Wasteland, which is one of my favorites of this year, and actually one of my favorite books of all time. I absolutely loved Blacktop Wasteland. This one just didn't hit as hard, but it makes sense. S.A. Cosby's writing has really grown as he's written more, so I'm just excited to see his new release that I'm actually going to get to hopefully in the next month or so. And the last 4-star book I want to tell you about is The Last Word by Taylor Adams. This was my Pretty Girl Book Club pick for May. We just had our discussion last night and it was so fun. So if you missed that over on Patreon, again, the Patreon link is down below if you want to hear our discussion of The Last Word. And this one is exactly what I mean when I say that I want an original thriller, okay? When I was talking about it with my patrons, we kind of landed on this thing that was like, is this a good book? Is this a great book? Is this a literary masterpiece? No. But was it the most fun, greatest, most unique reading experience? Yes. And am I picking up a thriller for like some really wonderful, beautiful literature? No. So to me, this definitely fulfilled its purpose in being just a fun, twisty ride, and the plot was so unique. We are following this girl who had something tragic happen to her, so she is completely isolating herself. She's having this like overwhelming guilt for something that she thinks is her fault, but obviously she's blaming herself, and you go on to learn more about that. But anyway, she is sitting in this beach house, just isolating herself from the rest of the world. And as she's sitting there to fill the time, she just reads like shitty KU books, which so relatable, love to see it. And she comes across all of this like wealth of independently published horror on Amazon. And she just starts making her way through, which literally me. And she reads this one horrible horror book on KU, and she's like, this was so bad, I gotta give it a 1 star. So she gives it a 1-star rating, and the author gets really mad about it and stalks her and tries to kill her. There is great commentary in here about the kind of weird relationship between reviewers and authors. There is just a lot of commentary on like what it means to be an author and put out a piece of literature in general. I feel like I heard a lot of Taylor Adams' thoughts, but not in a disruptive way. They just kind of like washed over me, which was great and very welcome. But it definitely didn't take away from the exciting thriller plot. I loved following our main character and seeing what she was going to do and how the twists and turns were going to affect her. I have heard from a couple of my patrons that they predicted the twist in here, but I did not. It really caught me off guard, caught me by surprise, and I really enjoyed it. It was funny, it was interesting, it was just so unique. Like that idea of an author stalking a bad reviewer, like that. Can you imagine? That would be like if Geneva Rose or Christopher Triana like tried to come for me. What are you, crazy? The villain character in this book very much is, and it was very fun to read from his like cringy incel author perspective. It was so funny. I just really loved this book. It's not a favorite of all time, so I could not give it a 5-star rating, but if you want a fun reading experience, highly recommend The Last Word. Don't expect a masterpiece, but expect to laugh out loud and have fun. And what more can you really ask for? You know what I mean? So now let's get into my 4.5-star rated books. Starting out with The Secret Bedroom by R.L. Stine. This is a Fear Street. This is actually a vintage first edition, first printing, which I'm very happy to have in my collection. And this is one of my favorite Fear Streets that I've actually ever read. It's a pretty basic plot. We're just following this girl who moves to a new town in a new house, and as they're moving in, she discovers this secret hidden bedroom in the attic, and there's something going on that is nefarious, and she's trying to figure out what is behind that door. And all we see, all the hint that we get is the skeleton hand on the cover. So we don't know if it's going to be a dead body, a ghost, we have no idea what is waiting behind that door. And when you find out really early. You don't have to wait through the entire book to figure out what it is. You find out before the 50% mark, and then the rest of this like plot unfolds about what that means for her, and there are so many layers to it. It's got a great subplot for like the drama at school. Like it's just very campy, nostalgic, fun, but this one has a really nuanced plot compared to other Fear Streets, so I highly recommend it if you are into a vintage YA horror paperback things. Next up, I have What Lies in the Woods by Kate Ellis Marshall. This was the other book that I read in my new release thriller vlog, and this is another one where it's like all about this group of friends who got into some stuff while they were younger, and now one of them has died or something has happened and the secrets need to be revealed to figure out what happened in present day. We're uncovering two mysteries at the same time. There is a podcast kind of plot line. It's just giving unoriginal to me. But if you're going to pick up that same copy-paste thriller plot, I would definitely recommend picking up this one because this one does it the best that I've read, at least this month. I think it was worth my time to read it. I was invested in the characters, invested in the story. The twists were twisting. There was a level of darkness that I really appreciated. I really appreciated the bisexual representation in our main character. I absolutely loved her. It was great for what it was, but compared to other thrillers, it's not the best thing. I will say this is beautifully written, much better written, just like words wise, than something like The Last Word, which I tend to give more credence to when I'm putting a rating on a book. But if we're just talking about my reading experience, I had less fun with this than I did with something like The Last Word, even though this one was debatably written better. It's written better in my opinion, and the plot was crafted better here. But I mean, if you just want a fun time, like, this is so copy paste, and I'm just looking for a thriller plot that is unique, and this is not that. So I could not give it a 5-star, even though it was pretty close to being a perfectly crafted thriller. There were no plot holes, the characters were great, the representation was great, commentary was great, darkness was great. It was great. But I just have this thing holding me back because It's been done. I feel like I'm shitting on this book. This book did it well. It did it what it's been done. It did what's been done well. But it's been done. So, good book, but I have a grudge. And my final 4.5 star book is Mother by S.E. Lines. This was another one that was featured in my Patreon vlog. I loved this book. Oh my gosh, I was so close to giving this one 5 stars. If there would have been just a little tiny bit more commentary, more twist at the end, just something to put it over the edge, it totally would have been 5 stars because this was totally up my alley and the execution was great as well. We are following this boy and he uncovers a family secret, specifically having to do with his mother. And it turns his world upside down. We follow him throughout his life as he is, before he figures out the secret, as he is figuring out the secret, and then the aftermath of that. So it's really from childhood, but the bulk of the story takes place over his college years, and then we get a little bit at the end of his adult life, but it's wild. This is a very character-driven, psychological, dark thriller about some fucked up family dynamics and family secrets that nobody ever wanted to come to light. But we follow him as he's figuring everything out and we get to know his character really, really well. The character development in this book is spectacular. These people felt like real people, not characters. I literally referred to them as people. These characters felt like very, very real people. The settings were palpable. The imagery was palpable. It was dark. It was twisty. It kept my attention. The twists were not big shocks. They were shocking, but it wasn't the craziest twist in the world. It was just really, really, really well done and really impactful because of the amount of care that I had for the characters, the emotional attachment that came out. And there's a subplot about a serial killer, and we're kind of led to believe the entire time in the book that our main character, who we have all of this sympathy and empathy for, might be the killer. So it's a very layered plot. It's nuanced. I just wanted that little extra bit to give me the 5-star feeling. It didn't give me that, but I would still widely recommend it. S.E. Lines is the one. She's so underrated. I highly recommend not only this book, but her backlist as well. Now we're going to get into my top 3 books of the month. These were all rated 5 stars and are new favorites of mine. Starting out with Not So Perfect Strangers by L.S. Stratton. I love this book. If you're looking for a juicy, twisty, action-packed thriller, this is the one to take from this video. It is about a Black woman who is trying to escape her abusive relationship with her husband, and on her way driving, making her escape, a white lady taps on the window and is like, hey, I'm in a similar situation. I'm trying to escape too. So she's like, okay, come on girl, get in the car. And it kind of derails both of their paths. There's a lot of social commentary in here that I really loved, but it wasn't heavy-handed to the point where it took away from the action and the thrills. It was still very fast-paced, very juicy, very visceral. I felt a lot of the emotions of our main character, and there was just a lot going on at all times. I was so invested. When I was reading this, I didn't want to do anything else but read this book. It was so good. And that level of commentary just pushed it over the edge to a 5-star book. I could sit here and rave about it all day, but I feel like that's a glowing review enough where you should all pick up this book. If you want full in-depth thoughts, you can watch the vlog that I already linked. It's in the same vlog with Slice of Cherry. And the other book that I read in that vlog that was a 5-star new favorite of all time is The Perfect Ruin by Shanora Williams. Y'all, you will know I've been saying for the past 2 or 3 years, nothing can touch The Last Mrs. Parrish. The Last Mrs. Parrish is my favorite domestic thriller. She might have been dethroned, and that is very hard to do because I love that book, but The Perfect Ruin comes really close. I think this book dethrones my actual all-time favorite domestic thriller. So if you are a rich people drama, bitch, I'm gonna steal your life, domestic thriller girly, read it, The Perfect Ruin, buy it, read it, you will not be able to put it down. We are following the scrappy little girl, and something happened to her in her past. Her life was completely derailed by this thing that happened to her. And recently she's found out who caused this to happen to her. So she sets out this little plan to ruin this woman's life. And this isn't just like any old woman on the street. No, the person who allegedly ruined our main character's life is this uber rich, uber famous, Instagram, charitable, beautiful, perfect businesswoman. And she's gonna take her down. And we follow as she tries to do that and all the twists and turns that take place along the way. Our main character is twisted, she is fucked up, she's crazy, but it's like in the best way where we're like still somehow rooting for her to get away with all the crazy shit she's doing. It is so exciting. It's just fast-paced, interesting, juicy, the drama, the rich people drama. Oh my God. The opulence, just reading about it was so entertaining. And then of course the perspective shifts, just like the same old trick that gets pulled in a lot of domestic bitch I'm gonna steal your life thrillers. But this one does it in a way that I've never seen done before. It is so unique. It is so wonderful. Obviously there is great representation in here. It's written by a Black woman and it features a mostly Black cast, including the like rich famous woman, which I thought was great to see. I've read thrillers in the past where it's like this conflict between this poor, like down on her luck Black woman and this like uber rich white woman, but it was nice to see both characters being women of color. I really thought that was fun and unique and obviously very much needed representation. So it just adds a layer of commentary, a layer of representation. Like I'm really rocking my brain here to try to think of a criticism for this book, and I just have nothing. Also, I tagged Shanora Williams, the author, on my story when I talked about this book, and we had a little conversation. She was perfectly lovely, and it just seems like a great, wonderful person. She has a whole backlist of romance books as well that I cannot wait to dive into. Y'all, this is a hidden gem. You gotta go read it. Like, I cannot stress this enough. If you're a rich people drama girly, this is gonna be your new favorite book. Oh, and it has like summery beachy pool vibes. So if you're looking for a book for like your vacation, perfection. Also, can you imagine how well this would photograph for a bookstagram photo on the beach? It's giving everything. And the last book, my favorite book of the month, and I know you're wondering, how can it get better than that? Like that was a new favorite. This book is extremely, extremely special to me personally because it was written by one of my favorite people on this earth, and I would still have the same thoughts about this book even if I didn't love its creator so much, and that is Them by McKay Watson. Are you kidding me? My bestie wrote a book. Like, what is happening here? Obviously, if you are on Extreme Horror BookTube, you know McKay. And if you don't, I'm gonna link his channel down below because you should all subscribe to him. He's phenomenal, so funny, so amazing, and he's an author. Look at this gorgeous book that I have in my hands. Oh, okay, so obviously this is 5 stars, phenomenal. I'm gonna give you the synopsis, but also I'm gonna give you a pitch because I don't really see people in their reviews like doing this plot justice. I'm gonna just give you a few buzzwords, and if it sounds like something that you would enjoy, you gotta go pick this up. We're gonna start out with, if you like sci-fi, stay with me. Gory extreme horror. Classic horror tropes with an updated twist. If you like the show Black Mirror. If you like that edgy kind of horror where things are just like a little bit off, it's like reality and then it starts bending and twisting into something that you're not sure what it is and it just takes you into this massive fever dream. If you like horrifying endings that will rip your heart out, if all of that sounds good to you, this is going to be your perfect book because it is all of that wrapped up into a plot that I am so proud to know that someone that I know, this like plot came out of their brain. Like, I don't know how McKay thought of this, but I am amazed about it and I'm just obsessed with it. This book literally gave me nightmares. It is that scary. It's okay. The scene opens up, first scene, we're following a girl and her dog alone on a rainy, thunderstormy evening, and all of a sudden she gets this alert on the TV. She's just trying to sit there, eat her sushi, and watch Netflix. This is literally me. And this alert comes on the TV. So immediately I'm in our main character's shoes. And it's like, hey, you can't trust anyone out there because they are out there, them. We don't know what them are. We don't know what they are. They could be an alien. They could be like just a doppelganger, a scary person. Basically, it's these things that look like people, but they're not. They can show up looking like you, your doppelganger, or someone that you love, someone that you know, a neighbor down the street, but it's not them. They just want to kill you, humiliate you, harm you, torture you, do anything to you to like take over your soul. So it's pretty haunting. No, it is actually terrifying. The concept is amazing and it's executed so well. It just goes off the deep end into this realm of horror that is masterfully done. I cannot speak highly enough about the plot, the characters, the gore, the extreme horror. Oh my God, this is not for the faint of heart. Like, let me just show you the warning. Let me just show you McKay's warning. Also, very, very much appreciate the warning. Of course, I knew he would include that, but just read that warning. Just read that, please, so you know what you're getting into with this one. But if you are an extreme horror fan and you want something with a little bit extra oomph, it's not just trauma. Okay, it's not just like straight up I'm reading horrifying things. Like, there's a lot to think about with this one. There's nuance, there's commentary. I took a lot of meaning from it, and I did read this one twice this month, so I got a lot of meaning from it on the round 2 read, and some nightmares out of the deal. So I just cannot rave enough about this book. If you're gonna get anything from this video, this one, I mean, and this one, and this one, and this one, but like this one. Really, I just read so many good things this month. Even though it seemed, based on my average rating, that I didn't have a good reading month, we got a lot of favorites out of the deal. So May was a success. Looking forward to June. I hope you got some good recommendations out of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Go check out Dossier down below. Get some money off of a luxury perfume for a really good price. And don't forget to go to therapy and read a book this week. I will see you guys in my next one.